Across thousands of years of human history, civilizations have created myths to explain the forces of nature, the unknown, and the terrifying mysteries of the world. Many of these stories describe creatures of immense power, beasts so destructive that entire armies, kingdoms, or even gods struggled to defeat them. These creatures appear in ancient texts, oral traditions, and religious writings from cultures across the globe. From the seas of the ancient Near East to the frozen myths of Scandinavia, these are some of the most powerful creatures ever imagined in mythology. The Hydra is one of the most famous monsters in Greek mythology. Its legend was recorded in ancient Greek texts, such as the works of Apollodorus and later Roman retellings of Greek myths. According to the myth, the Hydra lived in the swamps of Lerna, a region in southern Greece that was believed to be an entrance to the underworld. The creature was a massive serpent with multiple heads. What made the Hydra so terrifying was its regenerative ability. Whenever one of its heads was cut off, two more would grow in its place. Some versions of the myth say that the Hydra possessed a single immortal head that could never be destroyed. The hero Heracles faced the Hydra during one of his legendary 12 labors. Even with his immense strength, defeating the creature required strategy, assistance, and the use of fire to prevent its heads from regenerating. Fenrir, the monstrous wolf of Norse mythology, appears in ancient Scandinavian texts known as the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda. These texts were written in Iceland during the 13th century, but were based on much older oral traditions passed down through Viking culture. Fenrir was the son of the trickster god Loki and a giantess named Angrboda. From birth, the gods feared the wolf because prophecies foretold that Fenrir would play a major role in Ragnarok's the apocalyptic battle that would destroy the world of the gods. As Fenrir grew larger and more powerful, the gods attempted to bind him with chains, but he broke every one. Eventually, they tricked him into wearing a magical binding known as Gleipnir, forged by dwarves from impossible ingredients such as the sound of a cat's footsteps and the roots of mountains. Despite being bound, Fenrir was destined to break free during Ragnarok and devour Odin, the king of the gods. Another terrifying creature from Norse mythology is Jormungandr, often called the world serpent. Like Fenrir, this monster was a child of Loki. According to Norse legends preserved in the Eddas, the serpent was so enormous that it could encircle the entire world of Midgard, biting its own tail while lying in the ocean depths. Sailors and warriors believed that the serpent's movements beneath the sea could cause massive storms and waves. The serpent was the eternal enemy of the thunder god Thor. Many myths described their encounters, but the final battle between them was destined to occur during Ragnarok. In that final confrontation, Thor would slay the serpent, but only after being poisoned by its deadly venom. Typhon is often described as the most powerful monster in all of Greek mythology. Ancient writers such as Hesiod, in his work Theogony, described Typhon as a gigantic storm monster born from Gaia, the earth goddess, and Tartarus, the deep abyss of the underworld. Typhon was said to be so large that his head reached the stars. Instead of human arms, he possessed hundreds of serpent heads that could breathe fire and produce terrifying roars. According to myth, Typhon challenged Zeus himself for control of the cosmos. The battle between Zeus and Typhon was described as a catastrophic clash that shook the entire world. Ultimately, Zeus defeated the monster using thunderbolts and imprisoned him beneath Mount Etna, where his rage was said to cause volcanic eruptions. The Leviathan appears in ancient Hebrew texts that later became part of the Bible. Descriptions of this enormous sea creature appear in the Book of Job, as well as in Psalms and the Book of Isaiah. In these writings, Leviathan is portrayed as a creature of immense power that lives in the depths of the sea. Its scales were said to be impenetrable, and its breath was described as fire or smoke. Scholars believe that the Leviathan may have been inspired by ancient Near Eastern sea monster myths, particularly those from Babylonian and Canaanite traditions. In biblical symbolism, Leviathan often represents chaos and the untamed forces of nature. The ROC is a gigantic legendary bird described in Middle Eastern folklore and popularized in stories from the collection known as 1001 Nights. Travelers and merchants told stories of enormous birds capable of lifting elephants into the sky. These tales likely originated from sailors who traveled across the Indian Ocean and heard stories of giant birds in distant lands. In the famous story of Sinbad the Sailor, the ROC appears as a massive creature whose wings are so large they block out the sun. Dragons appear in mythologies all around the world, from Europe to China to the Middle East. In European mythology, dragons were often depicted as destructive monsters guarding treasure hoards and terrorizing villages. In contrast, East Asian dragons were sometimes seen as powerful but wise creatures connected to water, weather, and imperial authority. Despite these differences, dragons across cultures share one common theme: they represent ultimate power. The Kraken is a legendary sea monster that appears in Scandinavian folklore. Stories of the Kraken were told by sailors navigating the cold waters of the North Atlantic. According to these legends, the creature was so enormous that it could pull entire ships beneath the ocean. Some historians believe that the Kraken myths may have been inspired by sightings of giant squid. Mythology across the world is filled with creatures of unimaginable power. These legends reflect humanity's attempts to understand the natural world and its dangers. Whether these creatures symbolize chaos, nature, or divine punishment, their stories continue to fascinate people thousands of years after they were first told. Comment below which beast you think is most powerful and what your favorite mythology is.